I'm Susan McGinnis with Clean Skies News. The White House is behind clean coal, but states and private businesses must step up if carbon is ever going to get into the ground. That was the message today from the DOE at the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners meeting here in Washington. Clean Skies' Dan Goldstein was there. So Dan, a lot of practical planning today for CCS?
Yeah, exactly. There was a very detailed plan from DOE Assistant Secretary of Fossil Energy, James Markowski, about where the White House plans to go with clean coal. Obviously, there was $4 billion committed to clean coal in the Recovery Act. That included the Clean Coal Power Initiative, and we saw grants from that program go to AEP. That was earlier this year, $334 million for their chilled ammonia process in conjunction with Alstom. We visited that plant, you recall, last year. He also reiterated his support, or at least the administration's support, for FutureGen. Now, the costs for that program have been rising. The feds have already committed about $1 billion to that, and he was concerned, he said, about the ability of FutureGen to attract partners. That was his words to NARIC today. But he did say there was a bigger hurdle potentially with the long-term storage of carbon and how companies, states, and governments especially are going to share that liability once carbon is in the ground.
Who's going to be responsible for this storage hundreds of years after the injection is completed? When you think about a company, and the SEC now requires all liabilities to be put on the balance sheet and the annual reports, it'll be very hard and difficult for a company to put an unquantifiable liability on their balance sheet.
We heard a lot of practical planning for CCS about how to get the land. But again, the liability comes up as a big issue. That could mean a bigger price tag for the government, especially taxpayers.
When you start moving into long-term stewardship, we think it's going to be important to have the government play a role here to make sure that the resources are available to manage these projects in the long run, and that there's a clear entity to whom you have to go to if there are problems. And we don't think, of course, this should be a cost that's borne through taxes on your income tax form. We think this is something that has to be paid for by the people doing the sequestration through some kind of per ton fee or something like this that goes into a fund, which is then available in the long run for doing this.
And bottom line, Susan, Congress may have to step up to the plate and offer some form of indemnity to the companies doing the sequestration. That, though, they are worried that they could run afoul of the Safe Drinking Water Act, and that they worry could open opponents of CCS, or at least give them an opening to halt clean coal in their tracks. Susan?
Definitely some very complex issues there. So the NARUC winter meeting continues tomorrow. Dan, what's in store there?
That's right. We're going to hear from EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson and her plans. We're probably going to hear a lot about the EPA's plans for the endangerment finding, as well as how the EPA likely is going to work with a lot of the state regulatory agencies on their plans. Obviously, their regional efforts to control greenhouse gases, and I'm sure we're going to hear quite a bit about how she plans to work with those agencies on controlling greenhouse gas emissions. Susan?
Right, and we will have that tomorrow at cleanskies.com. Thanks for that, Dan Goldstein. And I'm Susan McGinnis with Clean Skies News.